The City of Dreadful Night by James Thompson. Read by Terence Craig. Part 3. I sat forlornly by the riverside, and watched the bridge lamps glow like golden stars above the blackness of the swelling tide, down which they struck rough gold in ruddier bars, and heard the heave and plashing of the flow against the wall a dozen feet below. Large elm trees stood along that river walk, and under one, a few steps from my seat, I heard strange voices join in stranger talk, although I had not heard approaching feet. These bodiless voices in my waking dream flowed, dark words blending with sombre stream. "And you have after all come back, come back. I was about to follow on your track. And you have failed. Our spark of hope is black." That I have failed is proved by my return. The spark is quenched, nor evermore will burn. But listen, and the story you shall learn. I reached the portal common spirits fear, and read the words above it, dark but clear. "Leave hope behind, all ye who enter here." And would have passed in, gratified to gain that positive eternity of pain, instead of this insufferable inane. A demon warder clutched me. "Not so fast. First leave your hopes behind." But years have passed since I left all behind me to the last. You cannot count for hope with all your wit, this bleak despair that drives me to the pit. How could I seek to enter void of it? He snarled, "What thing is this which apes a soul, and would find entrance to our gulf of dole without the payment of the settled toll?" Outside the gate he showed an open chest. "Here pay their entrance fees to souls unblessed. Cast in some hope, you enter with the rest." This is Pandora's box, whose lid shall shut, and hell gate too, when hopes have filled it, but they are so thin that it will never glut. I stood a few steps backwards, desolate, and watched the spirits pass me to their fate, and fling off hope, and enter at the gate. When one casts off a load, he springs upright, squares back his shoulders, breathes with all his might, and briskly paces forward strong and light. But these, as if they took some burden, bowed. The whole frame sank, however strong and proud before, they crept in quite infirm and cowed. And as they passed me, earnestly from each, a morsel of his hope I did beseech, to pay my entrance, but all mocked my speech. No one would cede a little of his store, though knowing that in instants 3 or 4 he must resign the whole for evermore. So I returned. Our destiny is fell, for in this limbo we must ever dwell, shut out alike from heaven and earth and hell. The other sighed back. "Yea, but if we grope with care through all this limbo's dreary scope, we may yet pick up some minute lost hope, and sharing it between us, entrance win, in spite of fiends so jealous for gross sin. Let us without delay our search begin." Some say that phantoms haunt those shadowy streets, and mingle freely there with sparse mankind, and tell of ancient woes and black defeats, and murmur mysteries in the grave enshrined. But others think them visions of illusion, or even men gone far in self-confusion, no man there being wholly sane in mind. And yet a man who raves, however mad, who bares his heart and tells of his own fall, reserves some inmost secret, good or bad. The phantoms have no reticence at all. The nudity of flesh will blush, though tameless. The extreme nudity of bone grins shameless. The unsexed skeleton mocks shroud and pall. I have seen phantoms there that were as men, and men that were as phantoms flit and roam, marked shapes that were not living to my ken, caught breathings acrid as with dead sea foam. The city rests for man so weird and awful, that his intrusion there might seem unlawful, and phantoms there may have their proper home. 8. While still I lingered on that river walk, and watched the tide as black as our black doom, I heard another couple join in talk, and saw them to the left hand in the gloom, seated against an elm bole on the ground, their eyes intent upon the stream profound. I never knew another man on earth but had some joy and solace in his life, some chance of triumph in the dreadful strife. My doom has been unmitigated dearth. We gaze upon the river, and we note the various vessels large and small that float, ignoring every wrecked and sunken boat. And yet I ask no splendid dower, no spoil of sway or fame, or rank, or even wealth, but homely love with common food and health, and nightly sleep to balance daily toil. This all too humble soul would arrogate unto itself some signalizing hate from the supreme indifference of fate. Who is most wretched in this dolorous place? I think myself. Yet I would rather be my miserable self than he who formed such creatures to his own disgrace. The vilest thing must be less vile than thou, from whom it had its being, God and Lord. Creator of all woe and sin, abhorred, malignant and implacable, I vow that not for all thy power furled and unfurled, for all the temples to thy glory built, would I assume the ignominious guilt of having made such men in such a world. As if a being, god or fiend, could reign, at once so wicked, foolish, and insane, as to produce men when he might refrain. The world rolls round forever like a mill. It grinds out death and life, and good and ill. It has no purpose, heart, or mind, or will. While air of space and time's full river flow, the mill must blindly whirl, unresting so. It may be wearing out, but who can know? Man might know one thing were his sight less dim, that it whirls not to suit his petty whim, that it is quite indifferent to him. Nay, does it treat him harshly, as he saith? It grinds him some slow years of bitter breath, then grinds him back into eternal death. Nine. It is full strange to him who hears and feels, when wandering there in some deserted street, the booming and the jar of ponderous wheels, the trampling clash of heavy iron-shod feet. Who in this Venice of the Black Sea rideth? Who in this city of the stars abideth, to buy or sell, as those in daylight sweet. The rolling thunder seems to fill the sky as it comes on. The horses snort and strain. The harness jingles as it passes by. The hugeness of an overburthened wain. A man sits nodding on the shaft or trudges 3 parts asleep beside his fellow drudges, and so it rolls into the night again. What merchandise? Whence, whither, and for whom? Perchance it is a fate-appointed hearse, bearing away to some mysterious tomb or limbo of the scornful universe, the joy, the peace, the life-hope, the abortions, of all things good which should have been our portions, but have been strangled by that city's curse. 10. The mansion stood apart in its own ground. In front thereof a fragrant garden lawn, high trees about it, and the whole walled round. The massy iron gates were both withdrawn, and every window of its front shed light, portentous in that city of the night. But though thus lighted, it was deadly still, as all the countless bulks of solid gloom, perchance a congregation to fulfill solemnities of silence in this doom, mysterious rites of dolour and despair, permitting not a breath or chant of prayer. Broad steps ascended to a terrace broad, whereon lay still light from the open door. The hall was noble, and its aspect odd, hung round with heavy black from dome to floor, and ample stairways rose to left and right, whose balustrades were also draped with night. I paced from room to room, from hall to hall, nor any life throughout the maze discerned, but each was hung with its funereal pall, and held a shrine around which tapers burned, with picture or with statue or with bust, all copied from the same fair form of dust. A woman, very young and very fair, beloved by bounteous life and joy and youth, and loving these sweet lovers, so that care and age and death seemed not for her in sooth. Alike as stars, all beautiful and bright, these shapes lit up that Mausolean night. At length I heard a murmur as of lips, and reached an open oratory hung with heaviest blackness of the whole eclipse. Beneath the dome a fuming censer swung, and one lay there upon a low white bed, with tapers burning at the foot and head. The Lady of the Images, supine, death-still, life-sweet, with folded palms she lay, and kneeling there as at a sacred shrine, a young man wan and worn who seemed to pray. A crucifix of dim and ghostly white surmounted the large altar left in night. The chambers of the mansion of my heart, in every one whereof thine image dwells, are black with grief eternal for thy sake. The inmost oratory of my soul, wherein thou ever dwellest, quick or dead, is black with grief eternal for thy sake. I kneel beside thee, and I clasp the cross, with eyes forever fixed upon that face, so beautiful and dreadful in its calm. I kneel here patient as thou liest there, as patient as the statue carved in stone of adoration and eternal grief. While thou dost not awake, I cannot move, and something tells me thou wilt never wake, and I, alive, feel turning into stone. Most beautiful were death to end my grief, most hateful to destroy the sight of thee, dear vision better than all death or life. But I renounce all choice of life or death, for either shall be ever at thy side, and thus in bliss or woe be ever well. He murmured thus and thus in monotone, intent upon that uncorrupted face, entranced except his moving lips alone. I glided with hushed footsteps from the place. This was the festival that filled with light that palace in the city of the night. 11. What men are they who haunt these fatal glooms, and fill their living mouths with dust of death, and make their habitations in the tombs, and breathe eternal sighs with mortal breath, and pierce life's pleasant veil of various error, to reach that void of darkness and old terror, wherein expire the lamps of hope and faith. They have much wisdom, yet they are not wise. They have much goodness, yet they do not well. The fools we know have their own paradise. The wicked also have their proper hell. They have much strength, but still their doom is stronger. Much patience, but their time endureth longer. Much valour, but life mocks it with some spell. They are most rational and yet insane, and outward madness not to be controlled, a perfect reason in the central brain, which has no power, but sitteth wan and cold, and sees the madness, and foresees as plainly the ruin in its path, and trieth vainly to cheat itself, refusing to behold. And some are great in rank and wealth and power, and some renowned for genius and for worth, and some are poor and mean, who brood and cower, and shrink from notice, and accept all dearth of body, heart, and soul, and leave to others all boons of life. Yet these and those are brothers, the saddest and the weariest men on earth. You have been listening to The City of Dreadful Night by James Thompson, read by Terence Craig. Part 3. Part 4 follows on the next video.